Disney occupies a specific place in the film culture. When people hear of a Disney movie, it conjures up an image of what that might entail. While the Warner Brothers, Universal, and 20th Century Fox names are certainly well known, you don't hear anyone say, "Hey, let's go see the new Universal movie." Is this a good thing for Disney, or does it have a negative effect and put them into a restrictive box? I wanted to explore what defines a Disney movie, and how the history has played a role in how the audience and the studio's fan base views them. In its early years, the Walt Disney Studio was known for its animation, and well, animation remains the medium for which they are most famous for. They have certainly played a role in that, as Disney has made sure that animated films have remained part of most people's childhoods. Walt Disney was the leader of animation, producing instant classics like Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Cinderella. I myself was born around the time when most of their animated movies were being released on video, so these were among the first feature films I ever watched. I do think the crown jewels of the Disney library are the movies produced by Walt Disney Animation, later joined by their partners at Pixar. Why do these movies resonate with people? Well, the breathtaking animation, the creative stories, likable and memorable characters, and iconic music and songs certainly play a key role. It is remarkable how, despite the occasional ups and downs, the high quality remains intact since Walt Disney first started producing animated shorts nearly 95 years ago. Of course, the studio has done other movies beyond animation, and starting in the 1950s, the amount of live-action movies outnumbered the animated features. Walt Disney applied a similar spirit to his live-action productions, wanting to make films that appealed to a wide audience but still had a sense of adventure, peril, and the ability to take viewers away to another world. And like how his animated films sought to progress filmmaking with new technology, Disney's live-action films like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Mary Poppins also took advantage of the potential imagination found in the best special effects techniques. Even high-concept comedies like The Absent-Minded Professor and The Parent Trap brought the needed sense of awe and wonder to their stories. Walt Disney was so intent on showing the audience things beyond their imagination, he also made documentaries about animals, science, and the cultures of the world. One disadvantage Disney frequently had, and one that still somewhat persists to this day, is the need to classify the studio in specific categories. Nobody looked at Warner Brothers as just the gangster studio, or MGM as just the musical studio. But Disney was always considered as a studio only capable of making family films. Walt himself grew frustrated with this, famously stating that he would have loved to have produced To Kill a Mockingbird, but his image prevented him from doing so. It's why the whole what Walt would have done logic that the studio leaders found themselves following after his death is flawed. Certain segments of the Disney fanbase also tend to fall into wondering what Walt would have done. But Walt Disney did not like to be boxed in. It's why he defied the industry heckles and made a full-length animated feature anyway. It's why he was willing to spend so much money on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and eventually Disneyland. Going back to the original question of what is a Disney movie, most might say it's any film that begins with the iconic castle logo and the words Walt Disney Pictures Presents. And yes, the vast majority of Disney movies do begin with Cinderella's castle and the melody of When You Wish Upon a Star. However, what about Touchstone? With Touchstone, the Disney studio was able to fulfill Walt's desire to make more than just family pictures. The first Touchstone release, Splash, about a man who falls in love with a mermaid, is not too far removed from what we associate from Disney, showing the main character's mundane life changed by something fantastic and unexpected. The Touchstone label continued to be used for a wide variety of movies, including biographical films like Good Morning Vietnam and Ed Wood, commercial comedies like Adventures in Babysitting and The Waterboy, quirky comedies like O Brother Where Art Thou and The Royal Tenenbaums, explosive action films like Dick Tracy and Armageddon, and experimental feats like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and The Nightmare Before Christmas. There was also Hollywood Pictures, which mostly released genre fare like Arachnophobia and Tombstone. However, this division also dipped its toe into prestige projects like Nixon and Quiz Show and high-concept comedies like Encino Man and Jack. Oh right, and a little horror film called The Sixth Sense, which was one of Disney's biggest hits for a time. I think Walt Disney would be pleased with a lot of the output being produced by Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures, and the diversity of their portfolios, and I have no qualms with calling them Disney Pictures. The next question comes with the companies and libraries acquired by Disney over the past number of years, especially during the Bob Iger era. Should they count as Disney movies? For example, when Disney bought The Muppets in 2004, they acquired the rights to The Muppet Movie and The Great Muppet Caper. Are those Disney movies? They did not produce or distribute those movies on original release, so I often hesitate to refer to them as such. Then there's the even more massive 20th Century Fox purchase. That's a lot of content dating back to the silent era, but as much as The Sound of Music, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Miracle on 34th Street, Mrs. Doubtfire, Ice Age, Avatar, and other Fox titles are all movies to be proud of, they're still not Disney. I found it funny when the merger was finalized and the Walt Disney Company put The Shape of Water on their homepage, as if to say, we made that. That's our movie. Don't take credit, Disney. You had nothing to do with that film and its success. The Lucasfilm and Marvel brands are far more integrated into the Disney identity, in my opinion. Star Wars Episodes 1 through 6 were not made by Disney, but I have no problem referring to the movies released over the past 4 years and any future adventures in a galaxy far, far away as Disney productions. What would Walt Disney have thought of Star Wars? It's hard to say, as the studio did not delve too much into science fiction when he was alive. However, as I mentioned earlier, he was often fascinated by the ways in which special effects and animation could produce the most unforgettable images, and Star Wars revolutionized visual effects in a major way. Plus, when making Star Wars, George Lucas did seek to create a similar sense of amazement and awe from the audience that Walt Disney was frequently known for. There's also Marvel Studios and the massive superhero-filled cinematic universe it has created. Disney began getting involved in their productions starting with the Avengers, and Marvel has now joined Disney Animation and Pixar as one of the cornerstones of the studio. These movies have managed to excite and enchant audiences with their massive spectacle, large-scale special effects, and superheroes to root for. It's unknown what Walt Disney felt about superheroes, although the MCU was not the first Disney venture into comic book movies, as they previously produced Dick Tracy and The Rocketeer. Since they purchased Marvel Comics 10 years ago, Disney and the Avengers have become closely linked, and for understandable reasons. I now want to talk about the modern perception of Disney and the importance of living up to that name. I think the animated movies made by Disney Animation have been of impressively high quality over the past 10 years, largely thanks to the artists and filmmakers working there. These have come as a result of their in-house talent, as well as newcomers to the studio. The rise of Jennifer Lee, the current head of the animation studio, has been incredible to watch. We've also seen the likes of Rich Moore and Phil Johnston contribute to its success, along with studio veterans like Ron Clements, John Musker, and Byron Howard. However, this has also created a perception in some fans that Disney Animation is losing its identity and, well, Disneyness. I disagree. This decade they have produced delightful musicals like Frozen, Tangled, and Moana that maintain the rich story tradition of Disney past even with their modern spin. While movies like Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia have offered fresh and creative ideas beautifully brought to life by this team of artists. I am very excited for Disney Animation's upcoming original Asian set adventure, Raya and the Last Dragon, and this week Lee announced 4 new directors who will be responsible for the next batch of movies. The appointing of these 2 newcomers and 2 Disney storyboard artists to directing positions offers an exciting future for the division. Then we have the current Disney trend of offering remakes of their animated catalog. These have been rather divisive, although the general movie-going public seems to love these reimagined takes on the Disney classics. The Disney fan base is split on them, though. Some, like myself, think these remakes should do their own thing, and bring a different spin that differentiates them from their animated counterparts. Others prefer that they stick closely to the earlier movies, replicating the story beats, characters, and music. Who should Disney attempt to satisfy? I think there's a case to be made for reusing the elements that audiences have come to love and cherish, but doesn't that also restrict the filmmakers? Jon Favreau has said he found it tricky directing his Lion King remake because so much of the original film is considered iconic, and there were many scenes he could not alter or cut as he was concerned doing so would disappoint the audience. The result was basically the same movie again, just now in photorealistic computer animation. There's a famous Walt Disney quote that goes, "You cannot top pigs with pigs." He was referring to sequels, but that can also be applied to the remakes. For those of us who would prefer the remakes go in their own direction, we have the upcoming Mulan to look forward to. From what we've seen, Niki Caro appears to be doing her own interpretation of the story, and it's now been officially confirmed that there will be no songs and no Mushu the Dragon. Because of these changes, I've seen some Disney fans wonder what makes this new Mulan, well, Disney. I think a lot of Mulan feels like Disney. It appears to have a hero audiences can root for, a sweeping story where she is thrust into a new world, a sense of adventure, and a potentially inspiring message that will appeal to a wide variety of audiences who want to escape to a new time and place for a few hours. To not classify Mulan as a Disney movie because it does not adhere to an earlier incarnation produced by them does it a disservice, in my opinion, and misunderstands what most people love about Disney. I think Disneyland is a good analogy for the studio as a whole. When you go to Disneyland, you don't just have Fantasyland waiting for you. You can also go to Adventureland, and Tomorrowland, and Frontierland. For thrills, there's Space Mountain. If you're looking for something a little spooky, you can visit the Haunted Mansion. And if you want some enchantment, take a trip on Peter Pan's Flight. And Star Wars and Marvel fans also have attractions and areas for them too. Walt Disney Studios obviously is not the same as it was when its namesake founder was alive, but I do think his desire to entertain and inspire the audience is still being upheld by the current filmmakers working there. And it's why I look forward to every new Disney movie that comes out, whether it begins with a medieval castle, a whistling mouse, a hopping lamp, soaring superheroes, or a galaxy far, far away. See you next time.